literally had to pause the Sunday game and I had to wind it back and I had to listen to it again. And I'd say I did that about 4 times, you know, and to me it was just pure and utter bullshit. Like,
The GAA Hour with Colm Parkinson is brought to you by Paddy Power, home of the money back special.
And when I started running, I suppose I didn't stop, and when I got the chance to go, I said I should go, and so I opened up.
We were only the small little fish out there, so we are. And
what is it about All-Ireland semi-finals, lads? We had 2 absolute classics last year, and I think it's fair to say that these 2 lived up to it. Absolute drama on Saturday, and even more drama if it was possible on Sunday, lads. Yesterday was all about the referee. Saturday was all about pretty much a bit of a classic game. Is that fair to say?
yeah, definitely. Look at I thought last year we had a fantastic weekend when it came to the All-Ireland semi-finals with 2 outstanding games and both of them going, you know, the Clare one going to replay and whatnot, and then yesterday was just unbelievable altogether. One of the best semi-finals I've ever seen, you know, and that was backed up, I suppose, by Saturday being a really, really good game as well. But, you know, a weekend of unbelievable hurling, but Jesus Wooly, there was some amount of talking points, you know, and I think that's...
How are we going to fit this all
How are we
into
going to
this
fit
show?
it in the space of an hour? It's
We
just
might go over,
incredible.
lads. You might be needing a bit
We're
of
no
overtime.
rush.
Brian, you're up in the studio today. Isn't that fantastic for the show?
What's rare is wonderful. It's the big occasions.
We don't have that still Skype picture we use for you the whole time. But listen, after all this drama, after all this talking, we end up with a Kilkenny Tipperary final, the 5th this decade. Boring.
Not boring, to be fair to them, both of them. Oh well, look, I definitely got it wrong at the weekend, but I don't think I have no problems with that. Everyone could have called both semi-finals either way.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
called both of them wrong as well,
so
for whatever that means.
Look, toss of a penny for both of them, and it's the same for the All-Ireland going forward. You could easily argue for either Kilkenny or Tip, but you know, Bugs hit the nail on the head there. We got 2 classics both in their own right. Totally different, obviously, but 2 classics, and what a festival of hurling we had for the weekend. Look, everyone's been crowing all weekend the hurling aficionado are back out. You know, hurling is well alive. It's the main
Hurling
game
snobs,
again.
We needed it in
hurling
fairness
snobs.
because it was nowhere near the championship last year, so hurling did need it. Like.
Yeah, semi-finals definitely. And listen, with the Tipperary and Kilkenny, we're not going to mention them anymore in the final. We know that's going to be a classic. We'll be surprised if it's not, because of the games they've played out together. I want to quickly mention the Sunday game here, lads, because they've caused a huge stir, let's be honest. Logan, Derek. I don't want to spend too much time on it. We're doing a show on Wednesday and we can get into it a little bit more and analyse it properly. I just thought it was a little bit of a weird one in that both have made those points before. This was a classic All-Ireland weekend of hurling, and that wasn't the tone that show should have been started on. It smacked a bit of an agenda from the 2 lads because we've heard it from them before. So why are they banging on about this again after 2 great games? That was my initial call. Now, it was brilliant TV. I didn't want to turn it off at the same time.
For me, look, Donlogue started it, and I think Derek just got caught up in it. And ended up then maybe scoring a few points and getting a few things just off his chest as he kept going. But look, obviously Derek speaks really, really well, and all his points were very valid. I think the really strange one from Donlogue's perspective, you know, just British colonialism.
He was losing the plot there.
He lost the plot. Like, that's utter rubbish now at that stage. When you're getting into that
What did he even mean by it? Who was he digging that at? Or what? And he says he'd been thinking a lot about this. I don't understand what he means by that point, or who he's digging at there.
I don't either, Willie. Being honest with you, and I would consider myself fairly sharp when it would come to understanding, you know, people's opinions and people's point of views, but I literally had to pause the Sunday game and I had to wind it back and I had to listen to it again, and I'd say I did that about 4 times, you know, and to me it was just pure and utter bullshit. Like, being honest with you, now I did agree with him, the point he was making about innovation.
Yeah,
I love to see
I
innovation.
agreed with most of what they said, other than that nonsense from Donlogue and the timing of it. If it was down the show a bit further, I might have said there was a space for it.
If it's something like even today, you know, where it's pure analysis, the points were valid and they were all well made. It was just the timing of it, and to not cover the main talking points of the game, like the referee's performance and the non-goals in particular, like they were huge moments. And that was the talking point. Everyone coming out of Croke Park yesterday, because I was there myself, that's all people were talking about. And everyone, I don't care who you are, tunes into the Sunday game waiting to hear about these points. And the 2 boys go off on rants. So
they went off self-serving rants, which I don't think served them well, because now it's looking like they've got a chip on their shoulders because they've both made those points before, right?
That's the thing, Willie. And you know, like Donlogue has often, you know, talked about promoting the game, the game of hurling that we have, the art that we have, you know, and here's the greatest weekend of hurling, you know, in the calendar year, you know, better than the All-Ireland final, you know, because you have the 2 games and you have the glorious opportunity to highlight the skill, you know, the passion, the determination, you know, and the tactical awareness, I suppose, of the players, and to dig inside the brain of Brian Cody and all 4 managers over the weekend and really break it down. And then there was a waffle here for 5 to 10 minutes, you know, about, you know, the British. It was absolute. It was bull, like, honestly, you know.
So Ken McGrath came back and says, absolute nonsense, ego's gone out of control. Michael Diglin said, 2 outstanding All-Ireland semi-finals. Thanks to all our amateur players for what you keep on giving. There's no game like hurling and no need to overanalyse it. Heart, guts, determination, conditioning, decision-making, coolness under pressure, all still crucial. Thanks, lads. Now, I would take issue with, we know Ken and Derek have kind of half fallen out this year a little bit over Waterford analysis. I think Dignam was being completely disingenuous with that tweet, because Donal or Derek would absolutely not disagree that heart, guts, determination, conditioning, decision making and coolness under pressure are crucial. That's obvious. Don't make out that they don't believe that. They would just like to see a little bit more analysis, and I would be in agreement on that. But again, I don't want to spend any more time on it, lads. We can't criticise the Sunday game for doing it and then us deciding, because we want to talk about these referee decisions, and I'm going to start with Saturday. I thought the referee did all right on Saturday. I think yesterday's referee was much dodgier. But the Galan penalty, I was thinking that's not a penalty. Galan didn't even call a penalty. Galan continued on playing. He didn't even think it was any, he didn't appeal it. Hugh Lawler was a bit on top of him. Galan's a big man, uses his body to probably shield Hugh off it. And he was holding Hugh Lawler's hurl under his arm. What's your take on that, lads? It was a huge call, and my take is that was a wrong call.
Well, Bugs.
Yeah, like, the defenders.
I'm just interested in your view as a defender first.
You see those type of incidents, 20, 30 times in games, even more, like, and it's a 50-50 call. And to me, to give a penalty, it can't be a 50-50 call. If it's a 50-50 call, you have to give the defender the doubt. To me, it wasn't a penalty. I see that the whole time, in the half-back line, you're going up and he was stopping Aaron Galan's left hand from rising. Okay, fair enough. But if you look closely, Aaron Galan had his hurl held. So to give a penalty at that stage in the All-Ireland final, when Limerick were coming back into it, I didn't think it was, Brian, but maybe you might have a different opinion being a corner forward.
And I'm a corner forward, and I'm going 3-for-0 on this one. I don't think it was a penalty either. Right. I'd be shocked if I was a corner forward.
And you got a penalty.
I've got a lot worse, manhandling inside in the square, and you wouldn't even be looking for a penalty. So no, I fully agree on this. And I know, look, again, all these talking points come out on Twitter, and a lot of people saying definite penalty, fair play to Alan Kelly. I thought it was very, very soft.
Yeah, no, that's open for opinion. There's no right and wrong answer in that, because you can come down on one side or the other, because they were both fouling each other, if we're being honest.
But look, I don't think there was enough there either.
No.
Like, if he came out over the top of him, and completely gave Aaron Galan no chance. No, look, for me, it's very soft.
Lawler's nearly a little bit too eager to get to those balls, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's a bit raw, isn't he? He needs to maybe calm down a little bit. That wasn't a time for stretching in over him.
Sometimes, the best thing to do is to break the ball behind to the goalkeeper or break it wide. Like, it's a little bit raw, a little bit naive, in a situation like that again. And he could get caught in an All-Ireland final, because Tip are going to lower ball down on top of him.
He's desperate to get his hands on it, isn't he? He's just that kind of...
You compare that to the man that usually sits here, JJ. Like, JJ, you can just imagine him wrapping up the full forward and just making sure that ball goes straight through.
Right,
you know what I mean? Like, that's good fullbacks. But look, he'll learn, I think, because
he had a great game now. Like, look at Aaron Galan, will probably get an All-Star anyway. Like, and I thought in the second half in particular, he was fantastic.
He was fantastic. Yeah. He took it slightly inside the line, but it wouldn't be too critical of that. It was borderline enough. Was it? He did.
Look, we've talked about this before on this show as well, about this penalty. People don't understand until you put yourself in that situation.
It's very hard to hit it perfect. Yeah.
Like, to try and not go across that line. And I know people say, bring it back further to make sure. Then you're back 25, 26 yards. It's all about perspective. You're a hell of a long way from a goal, even though it's only 1-on-1. Like, there's, I don't know, it's a borderline rule, being honest.
You're very critical of me there a couple of weeks ago on Leash. Cheddar's night. We finished in a penalty taking competition, sure. I was left with the last one. Like.
All right.
And how did that go? Buried the first one, but sure. He was giving out about
it went over
across the line, so I had to take it again and buried it again.
This conversation's a bit close to the bone then, obviously. So the sideline ball, we're all going to agree on this as well. Yeah. This was a sideline ball. This was the linesman got this badly wrong at an important point of the game. But because it was the last puck of the game, it gets more coverage than a lot of other decisions during the game, and all these things balance out. It was wrong. But you see some people talking about VAR and all this kind of stuff. Jesus, if there was VAR yesterday for Wexford Tip, you'd go to it 10 times.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, is that what people want? I don't know. I think the linesman got it wrong. It's a mistake, just like a bad penalty decision, and you have to suck that up.
I agree with you to a certain extent, Wooly. Yeah, like, okay, if VAR was brought in, okay, the time the game would be obviously be extended, all right, due to all the breaks and stuff like that. But when you're dealing in situations like this, and when the stakes are so high, I think there is a need for it.
But then there's a need for it for every decision during a game.
No, there isn't really. Like, you know, if
the Galan penalty, if that happened, the Galan penalty,
fair
but
enough.
the VAR wouldn't. How would he even get that right? You know, it's hard to even agree on that.
Unless you do the camera view from the side, no more so than the point yesterday, you know, as well. That didn't go over the bar, like, you know, or the went over the bar, I should say.
Well, here's a thing then. So we'll all agree the linesman got that wrong. Yep. So yesterday's game, you had John McGrath sending off. You had Tip disallowed goals, 2 of them. You had Paddy Maher overcarrying twice, which I thought he was very hard done by. You had the Heffernan punch. You had a penalty for Wexford, which looked like was a foul by Ronan Maher. You had Colin Fennelly 12 steps for the goal. You had Conor MacDonald's square ball talking point, and you had a Killen Buckley who led with his elbow into a player's neck, and that could have been a red. That's a lot of VARs into one game. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and now yesterday maybe is an exception to the rule.
Look, I think in today's, you know, society, I think we need to move forward. It's such a professional game, even though we call it amateur, and there's such high stakes, and I think we need to move forward. I know we debated this, but I'd actually move towards 2 referees in the short term to even just try it in the league and see how it goes. And look, I know the counter argument that is consistency, but they do it in Aussie rules, they do it in American football, they do it in plenty of other sports. I think that goes out the window, and just trial it. I think it cannot but help the situation, particularly in the short term, while maybe we are a little bit slow to embrace technology, even though in fairness Hawkeye came straight in. Other things like it wasn't a debate over the weekend, but the timekeeping, like, that's a no-brainer. That has to come out of the
shot clock,
hands
as well. The clock, not the shot clock. That's a no-brainer.
Football have that for years.
You're talking about that for a long time, and that should really be brought in. Let's go through these refereeing decisions quickly then. John McGrath deserves a straight red or a second yellow?
No, second yellow.
I've
watched
under the circumstances, right? I'm delighted he did get a second yellow, and he's not going to miss an All-Ireland final. Like, fantastic player, great guy. I didn't know a slap like that across the hand coming out.
It wasn't
yellow was enough.
Right,
a couple of things.
It wasn't a chop down. It was more of a flick.
The first yellow was a joke. The 2 boys were doing a bit of wrestling. Okay, I know maybe Sean Clear was trying to say we stall. Let's cut this out. Give 2 yellows. Still easy option. No way they were 2 yellows, because I watched every bit of it. They just had each other held up. You know, just umpires go in, break it up, get on with it. No need for those. John McGrath, I watched it back now, and I've watched it back 10 times. He didn't hit your man's hand. If you watch it back in slow motion, he hits his hurl. So, I think it was Damien Reck or it was Furman. It was one of the 2 boys with the yellow helmets coming out with. I think it was Reck.
So Reck
the intent
simulated
was there
that
all
then.
the same, though.
Yeah, I understand. No, I'm saying it's a yellow card.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not a yellow card, because
he went down holding his hand.
He went down holding.
So he was trying to get McGrath sent off.
When he went down initially, he didn't know which hand to hold. So, no, like, watch it back, folks. Right? And he was down holding, and he was making sure he was making a meal of that. So he put out his hurl to protect him, and there was obviously a clash in hurl. Look, definite yellow. There was intent there. Second yellow up for me.
So we were critical of Paddy Maher for simulating with Aaron Dunphy. So this is the same thing then, right?
For me, and look, it's another talking point. I think Dermot O'Keefe went down way too easy under the Barry Heffernan punch. I know he hit him a little bit of a dig, but lads, if that's going to floor you and you're down on the ground looking for attention for 2 minutes, I just think, throw it away. That's not cheap.
I agree. He tried to get Heffernan sent off as well, although you can't throw a punch. That was done by Heffernan, and that he could have easily got that was a second yellow.
Yeah, look, again, I'm not saying it's not a yellow, but I just think he made a meal of it. Like, look, Bugs, you've got plenty of them digs. Wooly, I'm sure you've got plenty of them in football as well.
Oh, I went down. I did, yeah. I'm not playing that game. You want to hit me, I'll go down.
No, sorry, no, that's not for me.
But then you see, I'm only a small little fella, so if I want to start playing that game, I'm tough enough to take your punches. Where does that end? I couldn't do that.
You were definitely mounting and got a box then, because that's that's what must have went on. Because Barry Heffernan didn't just hit him for no reason either. Like, there must have been a bit of mounting or something was after happening just before that situation. But the
ref got that wrong, but he didn't see that.
He didn't see it because they did show that
last
last night that he was looking the other way. But again, look, for me, I know that I'm probably contradicting myself there. It was a yellow. And he would have walked, but at the same time I still think he went down too soft.
Right, okay. What about the 2 Tip disallowed goals? So John McGrath's goal was disallowed for Hawkeye. Now, we can't call for technology on one side and then question the technology. I have to say, it didn't look to me like it was over from the angle they gave. But look, we have to trust Hawkeye. It said it went over. His hand slightly went back, and maybe if half the ball was over enough, that's enough to give it. I don't know, but the Jake Morris decision was a terrible refereeing decision. That was a breaking ball goal, and he gave no advantage. 5 seconds there.
Yeah.
It was well inside the 5 seconds, and that was the biggest poor call from the referee.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Just going back to the Hawkeye one, like, to me, it didn't look like it was over the bar either, and I couldn't understand why there wasn't a camera view from the side. You know, we've seen it last year with the phantom goal. You know, Tipperary and Waterford and Ozzie Gleeson, and we knew it wasn't a goal. There wasn't a camera angle there to really, I suppose, categorically tell that the ball was over the bar or wasn't over the bar. So it didn't look like it, and it was the problem was the delay from when it happened to, you know, John McGrath finishing the ball in the back of the net. That was the big problem. But the Jake Morris, as you just said there, Wooly, like Liam Sheedy, I don't know how. Now, he did get animated a small little bit on the line, but I don't know how he kept as calm as he did, you know, at that pivotal time in an All-Ireland semi-final, you know, a drawn game at the time. It was a horrendous call. You played the advantage. You played the advantage, and he didn't play the advantage. No. You played the advantage all the time, and he didn't play the advantage. And the stake, if Tipperary had lost that game, right now, people would have been saying, sour grapes and whatnot. No, Tipperary fans and Tipperary, you know, the players, and I was speaking to them in their backroom team there this morning. They're not happy with how the game was ref yesterday.
Yeah, right.
You know, a lot of talking points, and I think if Tip had lost. There's some. I think he made bad decisions, a good few bad decisions, right?
Yeah, like say like the technology one, I agree with Bugs. I'd like to have seen the angle. Look, we have to trust that the Hawkeye was right, and I think everyone accepted that. But the consequences of it, like, you know, the ball was cleared down the field. Kevin Foley, high tackle, Tipperary won a free. Annoyed me there was the inconsistency of the refereeing there. Nolan McGrath was after getting a yellow card for a high tackle. Yeah. Kevin Foley wasn't getting a yellow card in that situation, you know, so it wasn't consistency being applied there. And then obviously the goal ended up down the other end of the field. Look, I understand why that was disallowed. The other one, look, again, we're all agreed it should have been advantage played. I think what infuriated everyone was they thought it was he initially called a penalty, then he went in and he only gave a 21-yard free. So
it's all over the referee's head seemed to be gone at that stage, right?
And
which is understandable.
Yeah, the other one then as well, I thought the first goal that Tipperary got that was disallowed, like, I didn't think that was a free out. I thought Matthew Hanlon went down to gather the ball.
Yeah.
That was a genuine. That was a genuine goal. Yeah. The 3 disallowed goals. Yeah. That there was nothing wrong with that goal.
No, nothing wrong. Matthew Hanlon was going down over the ball and just went down. No, he didn't dive or anything, but he went down to try and gather the ball. Yeah. And just obviously a challenge came in, and Mikey Breen threw a boot at it in the top corner. Lovely finish.
Goal, and you could question Conor McDonald's goal as well, whether he was inside the square or not. That's another talking point as well. So like really there's 4 different goals there.
Yeah, that was given. Now in Wexford's defence, it was Ronan Maher's foul on McDonald where he wrapped the hands around it. It reminded me of who was it? Jamie Carragher on Julian Lescott in a Merseyside derby a few years ago. I don't know if you'll remember that, but it reminded me of that. He was behind him, he put his 2 arms around him and he brought him down. What's that? Is that a penalty, or is that a little bit like the Gallant thing? There's 2 at a minute.
A little bit of the Gallant thing for me. I wouldn't be surprised if it was given either. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Considering the
subjective call as well. Look, that's the joys of refereeing. Yeah. You know, again, we were looking at it from a different angle as well. The referee was probably looking at it head on, whereas we're looking at the camera angles coming right down on it, over the top. So look, borderline call for me. But the square ball was inconclusive. I know you'll probably have that as a talking point.
I think it was inconclusive,
you know, and I'm there on the radio roaring that I read, like in the naked eye, I was convinced that was a square ball. But you know, looking at slow motions, inconclusive. Yeah, I'd have to give it to a forward in that situation.
The rule isn't when the ball was hit, because it's clearly outside. It's when the ball enters.
Is he inside or not?
It's very borderline. I think Sky were coming down on the line that it wasn't. They'd ran it a few times, and
but why is there?
Diagnam was on the lines
a square
that it was.
Ball in hurling and there's not in football? I know it's to protect the goalie. I know that's one of the things, but they took it out in football because obviously the ball was hanging longer in the air, and you know, they felt that there was, you know, the goalkeeper had too much, you know, time or protection because of that in football. But in hurling as well, like, I'd like to see the square ball being removed from general play and only have it in from the.
I think it's from frees in football.
Yeah,
now,
frees
isn't it?
and line balls. As far as I know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I personally would like to see it removed in hurling as well.
Here's one that annoyed me, right? So Paddy Maher was done for overcarrying twice. In the first half, he was done for overcarrying as Conor McDonald was clearly fouling him, right? So is that him overcarrying, or is Conor McDonald clearly had his arm across his stomach, pulling him back, and he's trying to burst out through? We know what Paddy Maher does. The second one was classic refereeing overcarrying choice, because Paddy had taken too much out of the ball. And this happens with referees. If they think you're overdoing it, you'll get caught. I don't think that was overcarrying either.
Because he had dropped it on the ground.
Yeah.
And, you know, so he was able to take his 2 touches again, and then he was going back into the challenge. And And it looked like it was no way the second one. And again, that's one of the talking points. That was in the melting pot at that stage. It put Wexford actually point up again.
It did.
Like, he was going to be lynched.
Tip couldn't buy a free there for about 5 to 10 minutes.
But the first one, I thought Paddy stopped. You know, Ireland semi-final, like, you know, Paddy, you know, he's brilliant, obviously, driving out with the ball. I thought he should have offloaded that ball so that there was nothing in, you know, it wasn't up for debate.
But he was
you
being
know,
fouled.
I know he was.
Here's
I understand
Here's the thing I can't understand about hurling. Is that, and maybe you had to play the game that you know. I don't know what's a free in hurling and what's not. So when there could be 3 lads around clearly tackling the man and he'll get it away with a hand, that's not a foul. And then another one similar, that's a foul. And I just can't understand it. That referees are getting criticised for giving some frees. You want the game to flow. Everybody wants the game to flow. And I understand that. And the hurling's great for that. But then when he blows a free, you're like, you haven't given 10 of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Letting it flow actually almost, you know, brings the referee in for more criticism, because where does that stop?
That's why I said Paddy should have played that ball, so that, you know, it's stopping. You're not going. The referee is always going to give that decision then to award a free in for over carrying.
Yeah.
You know, so he shouldn't have stopped. That's my point.
Yeah.
I agree with you, it was a free. But
if he made an effort to play it, he would have got the free.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like, if you look at Paddy Maher, like, one of his trademarks is bursting out with ball like that and winning frees. And I think refs have nearly copped onto, you know, he might have been, you know, in previous games winning frees a little bit easy coming out like that. But definitely, going back to your point, there was at least 2 of those that were definitely frees, and they weren't given to Tipperary.
You were
at
a
the
good
time.
man at it yourself, Bugs, and holding on to the hurl and pulling the lad down, and then the big fist
You
pump.
weren't bad at it yourself.
Well, he loved the fist pump. Right? He loved the fist pump.
I was fond of that myself too.
The right half backs under the stand, you really get the reaction.
Actually, Brendan Maher at it yesterday.
Yeah, they were back doing it, and actually Brendan Maher bought a lovely free at the end. He left his
did.
hurl
He
back
left,
like he was being pulled. That was just experience, and I wouldn't have any problem with that.
He was out on his feet. Like, I was sitting beside Eddie Brennan, we were just saying, like, God, he's like, he was totally out on his feet. I was saying, God, maybe he needs to be switched out, but like, that was such experience. Just as you said, just got the hip or the arse in, you know what I mean?
And wriggled a bit like he was being pulled back.
I just thought it was
such an important
class.
free as well at
the
time.
Colm Fennelly took 12 steps, I think, minimum for his goal. He didn't try to play it once. So, like, I mean, if he this is the important point on this. If he tried to play it, he could have lost it. He never tried to play it, lads. And he scored a goal in a game, and he took about maybe 8 or 9 for his point. You know, the one he ran and then turned around and doubled.
8 or 9, you're right, because I counted that back as well.
That's 2 scores that he's clearly overcarried, not tried to play it. So I'd imagine.
I think in the referee's defence there, like when he got the ball, Sean Flynn was actually so close to him, and if you're from where the referee was and watching it, it's hard to see whether he does play it on the hurley or not. I don't know.
Is that it? Because Finn was so close to him, though. If he did try to play it in the hurley, there's a very good chance he's losing that, right?
That's it too, yeah.
There is a debate out there as well that maybe we should go to seconds as opposed to steps, because obviously steps are
steps should be easier.
Yeah, I know they're easier, but
it should be easier to count steps than seconds.
Steps, you see, depend on your body position. You know, but do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
It depends on your body position. Depends whether you're in full stride or whether you're trying to take a couple of initial steps to get going, and whether you're riding a tackle. There's a lot of variables at play when you're counting steps.
Yeah.
You know, so like Colm Fennelly's, he was riding a tackle, so you invariably end up having to take a few more steps. So that's where it comes back to the subjectivity of it. Whereas if you're going 3-4 seconds, whatever it is, 5 seconds, you know, whatever. Look,
if you're running with intent, you'll get away with it.
Yes.
And you're being tackled. If you're dilly-dallying like Paddy Maher and you're taking too much out of it, that's when referees know the steps, isn't it? Like, I mean, it
goes back to our point, Willie, about 2 referees. Like, if you look at that goal, that was a long ball poked nearly the full into the field. Into, like, look at where Alan Kelly was. Like, you know, he was like 60, 70 yards probably away from that play. Like, very, very hard, difficult for him. So it goes back to our initial point about having 2 referees.
I think in hurling, we'll talk a bit about more of that on Wednesday, but in hurling, I think it come to the stage where it just has to.
They have to try it.
It's travelling too far. The ball's travelling too far. How do they get down the other end of the field? Quickly on
there's so much like swarm tackling and everything nowadays anyway. It's so hard for referees.
It is. Quickly on the Killian Buckley yellow. Did you think that was dangerous? I thought it was a bit dirty
and
out
was a
of character
red
for him.
In the league.
Right.
Like, there's no doubt.
In the neck, lads.
The early rounds of the league. Yeah, look, I think he went to hit him a big shoulder. Killian Buckley's not a dirty player. I'd give him that much. Do you know? So, in the league, certain red. You know, you just don't see them given in these big games.
Right. Okay. Away from referees.
Head a lad now in another semi-final or final.
Away from referees, lads. There's some moments from the ages, like, I mean, stuff that just get you up off your seat. Liam Ryan's point, that was beyond belief, and it was just beyond belief that he was able to drop that off the hurl on that after running that far and put that over the bar. There was Shane Dowling's goal. That was like a Federer serve. I'd never seen a goal scored like that from that distance before.
Phenomenal,
Callanan's goal, running away from goal, ground hurling. We haven't now it popped up lovely for him to hit a flush. You'd Ronan Maher had a Diarmuid O'Sullivan rock moment where he caught a ball, his momentum brought him forward, took McGovern out of it and set up a point for Breen. Like, I mean, they're 4 of the as good a moments that maybe has ever been seen in Croke Park that happened this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. And look at, as we said at the start of the show, like there were 2 epic games that were riddled with those type of moments all through the games. And I just think going back to the Sunday game, if they highlighted, now they did to a certain extent, but if they highlighted those moments and those skill levels a little bit more, it might have been more on their line. Like, but unbelievable, like absolutely unbelievable. And you go back to Liam Ryan's point, it totally showed how Wexford have evolved, you know, especially in the last 12 months, where, you know, the defenders Sean Murphy, Damien Reck and the likes of Liam Ryan have such a licence to go forward, and when they go forward, you know, the Wexford forwards are just slotting back seamlessly into their defensive duties, and it was just an unbelievable piece of skill. Another one as well where Foley got a give and go as well down along the line. It just, like, usually a traditioner would usually a sweeper traditionally would stay back, but you know, he gave it and he went and super score. And
he should have given that to Reck, that one.
Should have given to Reck. But going back to Ronan Maher's catch, like, that just lifted Tipperary completely, lifted the crowd, and it just, if we give a real signal, like, you know, we're in this, like, you know, and we're not going away. And he was fantastic, you know. And in fairness, you know, Liam Sheedy he got his personnel, he got his best 15 on the field, you know. And look at James Barry, had a rough day the last day. He had a rough Munster final, you know. Kennedy slotted in there seamlessly. Ronan Maher was savage when he went back full back as well. So
it was an interesting one. We'll talk about Ronan Maher in performance of the weekend, because Conor MacDonald scored 2-2.
Yeah,
it's weird, isn't it? Like, I mean,
the work of Paddy in that situation, he must have got a call from Ronan, but Paddy actually was like a basketball, you know, a blocker in that situation. He just stayed down, stood his position, so couldn't be accused of taking lads out of it, and just left the path completely free for Ronan to attack that ball. I just thought it was really noticeable. There's another talking point that, just, I hate going back on referees, but there was a big moment off the ball where Colm Barrett had his helmet pulled off him.
Oh yeah, did you see what happened there?
Yeah, like the two of them were at it, and it ended up, look, they were, you know, same thing, pushing and shoving, but it ended up Colm Barrett's helmet was pulled off, and Colm Lyons was in the middle of it. So Colm Lyons saw what happened, and, you know, obviously instructed Sean Clear to give 2 yellow cards. Now, I'm not looking for lads to be sent off, but again, it's the inconsistency of the rules.
Well, in fairness, they've relaxed that helmet thing now, lads, which is for the good of the game. We don't want that nonsense that went on last, or was it 2 years ago with all the Waterford stuff? 2 years ago, we don't want that. That's I wouldn't
Collins was a big loss. He was the first high profile case of that.
Yeah, it had just been brought in that year, like, so.
Poor Podge crying on the bench. That was against Wexford that year, wasn't it?
In QC Park, just before half time. So we played all the second half without him. And we got the draw that day, and we brought it down to Wexford Park for the replay. But should we 2 lads sent off that day?
Exactly. Another one is Lee Chin's goal, lads. That was brilliant. The off the shoulder running. It was like a bit like Gaelic football. Gets Chin into the clear. Now Chin has 2 options. He's a man right and left, but they're being marked, or do I stay going on? And the lads backed off and gave him enough, got him in close enough. And then did you see Hogan, the goalie, take a step left? Did you see him with the camera behind him? He took a step left and made Chin's mind up for him, because it wasn't the cleanest strike.
Should have saved it, I agree. Yeah. He went with his hand kind of earlier.
It was kind of weird, because he kind of, it was like, he initially, as you said, he initially kind of went as if he was going to go his hand. Then he kind of looked like he was going to try and flick the ball out to the side or something. Like, he didn't get his hurl position correctly. He'd be very disappointed with himself. You know, I
it was a great move. Chin done fantastic. Probably still should have given it in. Yeah. You know, Chin.
The 2 defenders didn't commit to him, though. They made it very hard on him. They kept backing off and backing off. I was thinking he has to give this here, then they just kept backing off.
9 times out of 10, Hogan would have still stopped that shot.
I think so too. Yeah.
But Chin did everything probably right. You know, he hit it low. You know, it bounced and whatnot. Like, if it was anyway off the ground at all, it definitely would have been stopped.
Would have been stopped. Yeah. So what about the Shane Dowling goal, lads? I mean, this was
phenomenal.
Have you ever seen any player doing that before? Is this completely unorthodox?
Like, look, we've seen, and Colin Fennelly did it, and we've seen that time and time again. This we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, Willie. This has been brought into the game. I think Donald O'Grady was one of the first people to really coach this, and had it in Cork and had it in Limerick, and you know, he really has players doing that all over the country now, and players are well used to doing it. But from 20 metres out, like, it was like the power, like the power he got behind it. It was unbelievable. And there was nothing. I think it was Joey Holden was the nearest defender to him, and there was not a thing he could do about it. Noah Murphy, obviously, no chance in the goal. Phenomenal.
And it's probably the only place in the goal he could actually put it. And he got so high. It was
Came down like a bicycle kick, you know, into the bottom corner, wasn't it? It was unbelievable.
And he has a short hurley as well, like, you know, it's not like he has a big long hurley. He does, yeah. So it was just fantastic.
He did it so fast. I was like, what the hell's he after doing there? How is he after doing that?
And take the timing of it as well, Willie, when they needed a goal. Like, you know, if they're up 10, 12 points, you'd be saying, sure, look, have a go at it. Like, it was just
one of the best goals I've ever seen.
100%.
We had some footage of Davy being absolute Davy on the television. So there was a line ball, and like, I mean, okay, it was maybe a 50-50 or whatever, and he's oh my God, he says to the umpire, and now he has his hands up to his head like he can't believe this decision. Oh my God, he kept shouting, what's a terrible decision, oh my God, right? And it was actually funny, not long after he got a 50-50 in his favour after that. Like, I mean,
it wouldn't be like Davy to question the referee or the linesman, would it?
It was very funny.
Have such manners. That was definitely scripted.
It was. There was no profanities or cursing or anything.
But he was very sporting after the game. We got to talk about how he was, like, you know, in a game like that.
Well, I think he knew it. Tipperary destroyed Wexford in that second half. Now, Wexford did their best and should have had goals. We'll talk about this in the second part. But like, I mean, I thought Tipperary were by far the better team. Wexford were hanging on. But here's one quick one for you. Nicky Quaid did the old contact lens trick. Brian, did you see that in the first half?
I tweeted about that,
Wexford never did the contact lens trick.
They did.
Did they do
Jack
it?
O'Connor went down with it. Only that Tipperary, I think it was Barry Heffernan, was getting his helmet fixed at the same time.
Right.
So it actually kind of balanced itself out. So Tipperary didn't go mad about it. But yeah, Jack O'Connor went down. Tipperary were after getting a couple of scores in the second half. Yeah, it was.
Well, they got the 5 in a row after.
That's what it was. It was exactly then. And Jack O'Connor went down with the whole the contact lens trick as well. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Because I was thinking Wexford didn't manage that second half that well. Like,
they didn't. No, that's a much bigger point. Yeah. Definitely. And inexplicably, they went away from their game. And if they had continued with their game, they possibly. It's a hypothetical, obviously, possibly would have won that game, because they kept going route one. It's really, really strange. You know, it was playing into Tipperary's hands, and they made a lot of strange situations. I wouldn't have taken Jack O'Connor off. Maybe GPS coming into play there. He was after winning the puck out. He was working really hard. Took Rory O'Connor off. He had 3 points scored. You know, they left the likes of him on in the Leinster final. That's where they got their penalty out of. You know, he caught a ball. He was quiet for times, but you know, a marquee forward like that, you leave those type of players on in an All-Ireland semi-final. Yeah, they got caught at the back, in particular 6s and 7s. Like, just after, like, you know, Tipperary were working hard to come back into it. To see Shamie Canlan to be able to take a puck out in 30 yards of space underneath the Hogan stand and just solo forward and just put the ball over the bar, like, that's inexcusable from a Wexford's perspective, considering they actually have 7 defenders as well. Yeah, no, exactly. So, well, I don't think they did at that point. No, we're going to come back in part 2 and we'll talk about all that. Okay, so we're going to pick up on some of the points there just at the end of part 1. So after the match, Davy Fitz said our half forward line dropped too deep. Whether it got into the boys' heads when Tip had a man sent off, I don't know. We went long a bit too much. We worked it through the lines incredibly at times. And they did in the first half. They worked the ball through the lines. It was beautiful to watch. The attacking cornerbacks, always men around. But, like, I mean, how did that go so wrong? When John McGrath got sent off, they scored 1-2. Yep. So I'm actually narrowing it down to a substitution that Davy made after that, in that he went with he brought on Alan Nolan and took off Aidan Nolan and took off Sean Murphy. So he took off a defender and brought on a midfielder. So now he's down to 5 backs. Sean Murphy was injured, to be fair to him. Sean Murphy was, but he could have brought on a back. Yeah, I know what you're saying. And then he would have had 2 extra backs, and Tip would have had, you know what I mean? Now he's gone to 5 Tip forwards on 5 backs plus a sweeper. And for the first half, it was 6 on 6. It was 7 against 6, and now it was 6 on 5. More space for Tip. Yeah, and the space, you know, that's been widely talked about as well. The space suited Tip. Now, in the first half, Tip spread out to the 4 corners of their forward line, and they really tried to maximise the space. Didn't work all the time, but you could see that there was a clear plan to try and do it. And it suited them actually when they went back to 5 forwards. You know, hilariously, but they carried some great ball forward in that middle third when the game was in the melting pot, and Wexford seemed to abandon that. But the drop off in performance of Diarmuid O'Keefe, and then obviously Sean Murphy going off injured. They were the big things from a Wexford perspective.
So Murphy was injured.
He was injured, yeah.
Okay.
But like the two of them were exceptional in the first half.
Yeah.
And the amount of times they broke forward.
Overlaps.
Now, like you probably, the camera didn't pick it up, but Diarmuid O'Keefe's movement in that first half, he must have covered about 10 miles. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. And the same with Sean Murphy. I tell you one thing, I'm fair glad I'm retired from intercounty hurling or playing wing forward on the likes of a wing back like that. Now that's football tactics, and we've talked about this. Like,
poor Bubbles didn't know what to do.
He
didn't
know
want
what
to follow him.
And it wasn't until Bubbles went in corner forward, and he became more of an orthodox
and he was
forward.
looking for high ball then.
Yeah.
You know, he was calling for it.
And
He knew
he
he
came into the game then, you know, so it was amazing from that perspective. And Tip, in fairness to them though, they didn't just persist with the forced Wexford's hands, you know what I mean? They brought Shamey out full forward. I know he was after scoring the goal, but they brought him out full forward or out centre forward. You know, Liam Ryan didn't follow him. You know, Paulie Foley then picked him up. And, you know, Shamey picked him for a couple of points then as well when it mattered. So, you know, in fairness to Tip, they didn't just stay rooted and stay trying the one thing. They did mix it up, and obviously their subs had a massive bearing on the game.
Huge.
4 out of their 5 subs scored.
What they did, the legs. Like, let's be honest, and Davey was alluding to the training that Wexford did in November, December. Tip looked a fitter team by far. Now I know the momentum was with them, but the Wexford looked out on their feet. Now I do think that substitution was massive. The Sean Murphy for Aidan Nolan was massive because it changed Wexford's shape. And then Aidan Nolan had to be marked, so Tip went with no sweeper then, and it was manning up all over the field. And then Wexford just had one sweeper, but 2 men down in there, you know. So while Tipperary lost a man, instead of Wexford using that man to stay there, they took that man off and brought on a man to the middle of the field. Now, of course, this is hindsight stuff, because if they left the 2 men on, you'd say it was negative, and if Tiff came back, you know, it was a very positive substitution from Davy, which didn't work out well for him in the end.
Yeah, and I wouldn't boil it down to fitness levels of Tip being fitter than Wexford. Wexford are phenomenally fit, and for the game they played, they have to be phenomenally fit. I just think it came down to decision making, players' decision making at critical times, and you know, it has to start with the goalkeeper as well. You know, he had a spare man, but he didn't seem to be using him. He seemed to be pucking the ball along, and they weren't getting anything really from it. So,
Matthew O'Hanlon gave away a terrible hand pass. That was a big moment.
There was a level of complacency.
Wexford looked nervous, I thought, towards the end. Tip have been there, done that in that scenario.
That is experience, you know. But there was a level of complacency, and you know, there was definitely that little bit of, I suppose, whatever, we're nearly there, crept into.
Yeah, no, nervousness. I think there were.
And Jesus Christ, we're only a couple of minutes away from an Ireland final. And
I think that's perfectly understandable. The Wexford have not played a game like that, in that intensity, with that fever pitch, 61,000. This was a cauldron, and Tip have been in that situation loads of times.
But there's a couple of things here, right? Kevin Foley as sweeper, instead of playing in the pocket in front of the D, started to drop back and protect the house, and you know, protect goals per se. And Tip picked them for a couple of points, you know, outside the D. Right. Jason Ford in particular got a point. Obviously Shamey found space out in the wing.
So they got twice.
That's right. So they got a couple of points out the field where they weren't doubling up in those situations, whereas Kevin Foley was back and protecting the house. So that had a bit of a bearing. And like whether that's player led or management led, I'm not really sure. And then the poke out situation, as you said, they inexplicably kept going route one. Their poke out strategy is phenomenal. You know, look, when you're there, you can see some of the clear markers that they do, you know, hitting the crossbar and pretending to look behind and hitting it this way, and they've runners, and it's all scripted, but it works. You know, it's very hard to counteract it because the athleticism of the Wexford players. But then Wexford have a guy, and we've talked about this, standing in the hill 16 or in behind the goal, directing poke outs. So management have to take some sort
he
of responsibility.
He must have been gone to the toilet or something.
Exactly.
In hill 16.
So they have to take some aspect of responsibility from that perspective too, because he's, you know, by all accounts, Mark Fanning's been instructed where he's supposed to hit the ball.
Yeah. Here's the thing: is Wexford's killer instinct, which they just didn't have in the first half. D. O'Keefe was happy to tap over points. Sean Murphy
should have given it in.
Into Conor MacDonald. That was unforgivable at this level. You look at Richie Hogan. He had a point on into Hill 16 in that was the second half, and there was no goal on. And he still went for a goal. He ended up giving it off to Colin Fennelly. But he had a point. Like, Colin Fennelly ended up scoring just a point. Richie Hogan had that before he tried to orchestrate a goal. And there was nothing on. Like, if Richie Hogan had been in D. O'Keefe for Sean Murphy's position, or TJ Reid, they're goals. And they were happy to tap over points. And I think that was a big mistake, as it turns out. You know, because they had loads of goal chances in the first half. Potential.
Loads of them.
Yeah.
And I think the Sean Murphy one is the clear one, you know. your wing back, look, I not said he's not capable of scoring, of course he is, but your wing back played the percentages. Conor McDonald standing on the square, completely unmarked. All it was a tap.
He was roaring for it.
Yeah, he was roaring for it. It was a tap on goal. It was on
yeah.
all day long.
It was, yeah.
Do you know? And it wasn't the right decision to shoot from that perspective. Great block, by the way, by Rowan Amar. I have to give him credit for that as well.
Yeah,
I think when you have to look back at the way Tip changed the game as well when they were down to 14 men and they decided to play through the lines a little bit more and pick off points from out around the middle. And I think Noel McGrath's performance has to be highlighted because, you know, when the brother goes off, talk about, you know, standing up for a younger brother here, like he literally grabbed the game by the scruff of the net himself and Ronan Maher, and he got some fantastic scores. Like, you know.
Barry Heffernan as well.
Barry
I have to give him huge credit. Like, you know, that man, he's been on the fringes for the last couple of years, unlucky with injury. He's a big rangy hurler. I thought he was brilliant.
He pulled. I don't want to be too shallow here, but he pulled his shorts up too high.
He rolls them up, but you're good enough at that yourself.
He pulls them up way too high.
My former teammate Colin Ryan. He would like me saying that.
It could be just
size 28, is it?
Can't be comfortable there. You're just you're too much on show there.
1970s all over again.
But like, I mean, this is the thing. But Wexford surprised me yesterday that we've analysed Wexford a lot and how they use the sweeper. We've analysed D. O'Keefe being way up ahead of the ball, their wing backs being way up ahead of the ball, and basically it's almost like an all-out attack, and it's a different type of attack. I'd never seen their corner backs attack like they did yesterday. I'd never seen that from Wexford before. Now you can correct me if I'm wrong, but O'Donoghue and Rec, this was a clear tactic, lads. Sean Murphy, clear tactic, although we've seen that before. Bubbles is lazy. John McGrath's not going to want to follow you. Who's in the other corner? Jason Ford's not going to want to follow you. Whoever, they won't follow you. Get up ahead of the ball. And these lads are breaking up the field and they're in acres of space. Caused all sorts of problems. That was a big shock from Tipperary. And again, that's borrowed from Gaelic football. I hate it in Gaelic football because what you see in Gaelic football now is you see the likes of David Clifford and all these good forwards are having to track these lads, being dragged out of positions. And the cornerback a lot of the time isn't even trying to get into the play. They're just doing it purely. Now the game is changing again where Clifford is letting them on now and pawning them off, but for the last couple of years they were following them. So Hurling's going to have to catch up on that now, because this is going to be the new thing now. Cornerbacks are going to take off up the field. They're going to try and join attacks, and if they don't, who cares? You've dragged John McGrath where he doesn't want to go, and now he's tired.
Yeah,
exactly. And look at Tipper at loggerheads, like for large periods in the first half, they didn't know what to do, and Wexford were just creating overlap after overlap, and a lot of the time they took points when they had an overlap on, and they could have even brought it in further. Like so, look, it was definitely a tactic by Fitz, and you summed it up just there, Wooly. You know, Davey would have looked at the Tipperary forwards and looked at the personnel that they have, and would ask the question: are they trackers? You know, or are they scorers? Yeah, as well. You know,
and smart man, Davey.
He
really
a smart
is.
man. You know,
really
and you have to love his innovation,
yeah.
and I do love the way, you know, Wexford have evolved. And I thought like they played some unbelievable hurling, and I love to see hurling played like that from time to time. I love the traditional style as well of getting it in and seeing the likes of Colin Finley's goal and all that too.
Yeah, that came from a puck out.
Again, yeah, exactly.
A huge puck out.
Look, Dave, you're saying the first time you ever seen it, it isn't and it's probably the first time it's worked so well.
Yeah, or that obvious maybe.
Yeah, that obvious. Like Simon O'Donoghue got a point in the Leinster final too by coming up the field. They probably didn't break up the field as much. Or maybe it was their creation of space up the field as well, because particularly in the first half they seemed to hit their number 10 position repeatedly. Their space was in there all the time, and they were breaking down that side, down that Cusick stand side repeatedly. So maybe there was something in that, and what the wing forward was doing there, centre forward pulling out of that area to create that space, and it worked a treat. Because if you actually look at Paddy Maher, he really sat off. He really sat back in the pocket. I know he was their spare man, but he just sat back on the edge of the D, because, and I've referenced this a few times, in the league they ran through the centre 6 and 7 times, so that would have been the homework that Tip had done. They were making sure that Paddy was going to be there to meet any of those runners coming through the centre, but Wexford played a bit of poker and they went a different route and created a lot of point scoring opportunities down that channel.
Fitzy would have started the whole process of wing backs going up with us back in 2016, you know, but when we went up, there was no cover at the back, only the sweeper, right? But he has evolved that now, and so when the backs do go up, you have forwards and midfielders dropping back, and the spaces are being covered. You know, I think that's the big thing, how he has evolved it, you know. Yeah, no, but that's the thing, it's evolving all the time, and again, this is more of a talking point, a broader talking point for Wednesday, so I'm not going to go into it. You have to talk about Tipperary here, lads, because Liam Sheedy said after the game their character was questioned. Noel McGrath said we were questioned beforehand about what we can and we can't do. I'll tell anyone that was looking for answers, got them today.
This was unreal because they went 1-2 down obviously when Leach in. Now Davy makes that substitution. I think that had an effect on it. Then Tipperary took over, scored 5 in a row, all in around that time. Tipperary went out of the game. So scored 5 in a row. After the Chin goal went in, you think Tip were gone. I didn't see any way back for Tip at that stage. They were gone as far as the stadium erupted. So the character to score 5 in a row. Not only that, after getting the whole way back, Conor MacDonald gets a debatable goal to put you. Now you're back 3, and now the clock's running down.
Usually that's curtains.
And they still came back from that. Like, I mean, Jesus, if they were worried about character, like, there's not a game. There is not. And then you're trying to think of tactical things they did. And I think this was a case of Brian Cody. The game took on a life of its own. Their leaders all stood up. The bench helped a lot. Yep. I don't think they did too much maybe moving it around tactically, on the pitch, Sheedy. But these are leaders, characters, experience, all those things.
And they've done it time, before 2014 step comes out in my mind straight away, that epic All-Ireland final against Kilkenny where they drew and ended up going to a replay as well. So that was one of the things that really stood out for me back then, was the ability of both sets of players to keep going even when a team had scored a goal or a couple of points, that it didn't seem to faze them and they just kept going on with. So Tip have been there, and you've mentioned this already, Bugs and Wooly, that they have this experience of doing that, and they never panicked. From the 50th minute on, they outscored them 12 points to 1-2. Like, that's fun, and they were down a man. And I've never, and we talked about the Tip fans last week as well, I never seen the Tip fans as animated since 2010. There was a pocket of them in the Cusick stand side in particular, and they were going nuts. They really, even though there was a small, they were well outnumbered, but those that were there in that particular moment coming down home stretch, they were very vocal and they were very animated. Really added to the occasion, I have to say.
I think it's funny how teams really up it sometimes when you do get a man sent off, and from my own playing days, it happened to us in Cusick Park against Dublin back in 2012. And I don't know what it was, we were 6 points down, but yet when we got the man sent off, we seemed to just raise it. And I was at a club game in Galway actually on Saturday as well, and we were down. I'm involved with a club there in Galway, and we were down 6 points. Man sent off. Next team we went 7 points. We scored 7 in a row, went 1 up. Didn't win the game, but still it's funny how it goes.
It's obviously the psychology.
Teams just seem to exactly.
It's the psychology of both teams. Because one team becomes defiant, and the other team thinks, geez, that's great. We should win it with a man up now.
Especially because Wexford had scored the 1-2. They probably thought they were home and hose. We're 5 points up. We've an extra man. We play a sweeper anyway.
Let's just see this out.
Like, look at
sometimes the nervousness goes.
It's not like, before people start queuing, it's not arrogance, it's not nonchalance, it's just it is pure psychology and it's human nature. So it's not like we're just blaming this on Wexford. This happens time and time again, and it's very hard to put your finger on it at the same time.
Maybe players are thinking, okay, look at we're down a man, people probably don't expect us to win, so like the nervousness of how you're feeling just probably goes. You just say, fuck it, I'll just go for every ball here now. If it breaks in behind you, what is it? Look at people who expect us to lose, the fact we're down to 14. I think it's a huge psychology.
Loads of
different variables.
Yeah, loads of different variables. The two changes, just to finish up on Tipperary, Heffernan and Kennedy coming in, that they were smart changes, right? Because obviously Barry would have been question marks over him, and especially with the Laois match. He's a good player, but maybe doesn't suit if they have a spare man. And I think Heffernan's a very good player. Brilliant, short aside, but I've never seen him not do a job that he's there to do. That you know what you'll get out of him.
I've seen quite a bit of him now in University of Limerick as well. He's been fantastic for them for a couple of years, won a Fitzgibbon Cup and whatnot. And they were clever. They're ball players, the two of them. They're ball players.
That's the way forward with Wexford, isn't it?
And there's no doubt about it that in the Munster final and the game against Laois, Laois did target James Barry. Okay, we'll offer up the sharp hook out to him, his distribution the same day wasn't great. Like in the Munster final, it wasn't great. So Liam was like, okay, sure, Wexford are probably going to say this. They're probably going to do the exact same thing, offer up the sharp hook out. But if you Barry Heffernan getting on it or Kindy getting on it or Ronan Maher, they're probably that little bit better at delivering the ball than James.
It's changing. If it's getting like Gaelic football, hurling's going to change in the next 3 or 4 years. In that everyone has to be good on the ball. The traditional shape of a full-back being a big lad, the two corners being sticky markers, none of them brilliant on the ball. The half-back line, full-back lines have to be as good on the ball as half-back lines. That's the way it's going to have to be. And I think that was the first step of that happening with the team Tip picked, of identifying potentially that happening.
And you don't have to be a big massive man anymore to be full-back.
That's it. But this, against teams like Wexford, who throw a totally different shape onto the game, you can't be just a one-dimensional player out around that middle of the field.
Yeah, look, point definitely agreed, but I think the game has moved towards that a lot in the last couple of years. I don't think this is a watershed moment for that either. the skill levels of players nowadays it's phenomenal. It's moved on again, and obviously different skills come into play. You know, you have the rucks and you have the movement off the ball. A lot of football tactics actually coming into it, and it's evolving, as you said. You know, Kilkenny like to still keep it simple and pretend that they don't play tactics, but clearly they do, and we'll get into that later on, obviously. So tactics, very important, but it still comes back to honesty and work rate and all that. And look, I'm a Liverpool supporter. You listen to Jurgen Klopp, he talks the exact same thing. He talks about passion as the word he used. You know, all the tactics in the world, and he's clearly very, very tactical and innovative coach. He still wants his players to play with passion, and he looks for his fans and the Liverpool fans to get behind him as well. So he sees the importance of marrying both things. It's not one or the other.
No, it's
you
not.
You need both.
And that's the thing. But like, there's not one team talk you've ever heard at any level that didn't say we have to win the battle first, lads. Right? That's all. That's across every level of Gaelic games, that you have to win the battle. And if you don't win the battle, you can't play your game because you're being dominated. You know what I mean? So that's the fundamental. So I don't like Dignan trying to make out that side of it is mutually exclusive from the, you know, the tactical side. It's all married together.
Yeah, exactly, Willie. And I think, you know, I'd say that clip of Adrian Mullen's point where, you know, they swarmed, was it Tom Morrissey coming out with the ball there?
Yeah.
And it was turned over.
Or Casey, I think it could have been.
Was it Casey coming out with the ball? It was one of them anyway. And the ball was turned over and Mullen put it over the bar. I'd say that video is probably doing the rounds in nearly every club WhatsApp group about, you know, hunting in packs and whatnot. But in order to play a game like that and to bring that intensity, you have to be phenomenally fit. And if you look at Limerick and Tip and all the teams now, they are phenomenally fit, you know, to keep up that intensity for the full game. So.
And they have to repeatedly practice in what they're doing in training as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that's where your small-sided games and your level of coaching comes in, because it's a very much a throwaway statement. Oh, hunt in packs. Oh, go out there and work hard. If you don't practice it repeatedly in training,
you can't just turn it on.
No, you can't turn it on, and that was clearly practiced. They showed a clip of it last night, and I thought, in fairness, the analysis from Derek, Donalogue and Brendan Cummins last night was very good on the match, and I thought it was a great example of the puck out went to Barry Nash. And every forward that was close to him descended on him. Yeah. That's practice. That's absolutely practice. And that's very risky too, because if the first man that comes to Nash doesn't stop him up, well, then the other 3-4 have left their men. Yeah. And against Limerick, they play the short stick passes. So that's high risk, high reward stuff, isn't it? The
ball needs to go the far side. Like, it literally needs to go across to probably number 5 in that case, you know?
Yeah. But you see, they've Nash under, the first lad that lights on Nash has him under so much pressure, he's sending him up the line. And he's no options up the line. Do you know what I mean? Because I see Portlaoise would practice stuff like that. You give it, let the cornerback get it, and shepherd him up the line where he's got no options. Do you know what I mean? So that there's clear tactics of offering to a dodgy cornerback and give him nowhere to go. And I think that's what
sometimes you have to recycle it, Willie, and that's the thing, like, you know, it comes down to your spatial awareness and maybe being patient and recycle the ball back a small little bit. But yeah, it was a great bit of analysis.
So we'll move on a little bit to Waterford, or to Kilkenny and Limerick, because, like, I mean, I suppose John Kiley was interviewed after the game, and he says it took us a while to settle into the game. Kilkenny brought a ferocious intensity to the breaking ball and got a platform that they were very efficient with. And it's just like, I don't know, lads, retaining the All-Ireland. Now, in fairness, Limerick hit the pitch of the game, but they were maybe 15 minutes too late when they were too far behind. But Limerick did that to Galway last year. Yeah. Galway weren't expecting what Limerick brought. What is it about retaining it, lads? I know, like, I mean, it must be, Bugs, you tried to. Like, I mean, where are you psychologically?
Very far, like.
You tried it for 4 years. But where are you psychologically? Like, you're trying to be at that pitch. And Limerick got to that pitch in the Munster final, but Tip had beaten them. So now they had that revenge. They had nothing against Kilkenny. They'd beaten them last year. I think they were off the pitch of it at the start.
Completely. And, you know, the tone was set right from the throw-in. I can remember Cyril Farrell coming down to my club back in 2009 when we were in intermediate, and we ended up winning the intermediate the same year. And the first thing he said when he got us in the dressing room, lads, if you win the throw-in, you set the tone, you win the game. You know, and I think the tone was set right from the very, very start when Richard Leahy won it and won a free. But just go back to Limerick there for a second, right? There's no doubt about it, Wooly. They had planned their season and hoped to get that quarter-final game. Like, if you go into the last round of games in Munster, why would you drop 4 of your main players? You know, they weren't guaranteed a place in the Munster final. Why would you drop 4 of your main players? You would have obviously thought that Cork were going to beat Clare, judging on Clare's 2 performances. Limerick wanted that 3rd place. There's no doubt.
So?
100%, Willie.
Or were they not just playing shadow boxing with Tipperary?
No, they weren't. No. Well, Limerick were happy. Limerick knew that the best route for them, right, to win in All-Ireland would have been getting that quarter final and getting that game.
I don't
There's
know.
without a shadow of a doubt, Wooly.
What about the magic of the
would you
Munster
drop?
Championship?
Why would you? Okay, when they got to the final and they were playing in the Gaelic grounds, 100% they were said, right, we want a title here. You have to play in front of your fans. And
but
when
you
got
think
to
they
that
didn't
stage,
want to get into the final and
No,
win
in
it?
the last round.
in the last round when they played Tipperary, okay,
They expected Cork.
they expected
to win.
Cork to win, judging on Clare's 2 performances previous to that. You drop your hurler of the year, you drop Declan Hannon, you drop Gerard Hegarty and Graham Mackay. 4 pivotal players.
But I thought they were doing that because they had a good chance. Limerick were, even if Cork had beaten Clare, Limerick were going to get into that. Based on results.
Not the Munster final. If Cork had beaten,
Limerick would have made the third play. They were
Cork had
guaranteed
beaten
third.
Clare, they were guaranteed
qualified.
third,
Yeah,
and
sorry.
they qualified. So I think
I said
Kylie
wrong.
knew the back of his mind that getting this quarter final is absolutely pivotal. And look, as it showed, they were slow starters. It took them 20 minutes. Now the argument is Wexford started really, really well, and they didn't have a quarter final. But I think Kylie really, really did want that quarter final deep down.
Right.
Yeah, and look, I think.
I don't know if I'm agreeing with that, by the way, but I thought.
My thing, and I was on this show critical of Limerick. They're chopping and changing, and like they had a really proven team last year. I know Peter Casey came in and shoved Seamus Flanagan out and deserved it, so obviously. But the chopping and changing around midfield, the half back line, I thought they needed a little bit more consistency. It looked like they were. The first round, I think they got caught against Cork. They were probably built up after the league final. They thought they were going to win that game relatively easy. But after that, they seemed to just pick and choose games. And that last game in Munster definitely was a case in point. So it's very hard when you have a stop-start year and hope. And then, look, I think it's absolute rubbish. In fairness to Limerick, they didn't offer it up as an excuse, but this rubbish that people keep spouting up. I know statistics back it up, but this rubbish that win the Munster final is suddenly it's against those teams that get into an Ireland semi-final.
But think of the momentum that Kilkenny gained from beating Cork.
I understand
I
that.
know, it bridges the 4 weeks with a match in the middle. But
it's not enough an excuse. Great teams overcome that, lads. You don't offer up those excuses. I don't care what anyone says. That to me is a lazy excuse.
No, but there's no doubt that the stats do back up that it's not winning the Munster.
Look at the minor championship this year as well. Limerick are out, they won the Munster minor. Wexford are out, they won the Leinster minor.
But there's the same gap between Wexford won the Leinster minor, right? Okay,
lads, if you're good enough, you'll win it. I don't care.
See, Kilkenny do skew the numbers because Kilkenny were so much better than everyone else. They dealt with the gap really well, and because they were winning it every year, they were able to get it down to a T. But in fairness, John Kiley said after the game, he gave them a week off. So it's not like they were banging in for the 4 weeks, keeping it going. You gave them a week off and then got them back in for the 3 weeks, which seems like the right way to handle that gap.
I think for the way Limerick play as well, they play a sharp passing game, they play high intensity, but they need to be sharp for the game they play. Their sticks, their ball to hand. Their ball to hand wasn't the same yesterday as it was other games.
One that sticks out to me is Gerard Hegarty. Completely miscontrolled.
That wasn't to hand. In the Munster final, that was going to hand.
Right. No, but this was just very basic control that he'd always get. Well, it came up in front, and then out of frustration he ran and fouled the Kilkenny man. Remember that after that?
Yeah.
Then he had another guaranteed point into Hill 16, and he went for a real flashy ball to Galan.
But it was uncharted territory from a Limerick's perspective. Like, again, it's not arrogance I'm accusing them of, but they expected to go up and blitz Kilkenny and dominate their will on the game and win the physical battles. That's what they pride themselves on, and they were shell-shocked in that 10 minutes. Like, Kilkenny hit them with absolutely everything, so you have to give Kilkenny some credit from that perspective. And it's a strange experience, and we've all been there, Bugs. When Kilkenny hit you with that, I don't care what players they have in the field, it's very hard to cope with it. And
unfortunately, I never got that far in the championship to experience that.
You're only human, you know what I mean?
She won a soft one without
Bye, Shane Stephen.
Yeah, so like in fairness, like it's difficult, and it does take a while, and you're only human, as I said. It does start to affect you, and mistakes start to creep into your game. But in fairness to Limerick, they did fight their way back into the game. I just don't buy into it. Look, we've seen plenty of club championships up and down the country as well, where there's systems where if you top the group, you go into a semi-final. We have it in Offaly. If you're good enough, lads, you'll win that All-Ireland semi-final or county semi-final, whichever it is, whatever competition is, you'll win it regardless. You won't use 4 weeks excuse. And in fairness to Limerick, they didn't use it.
They didn't, and both games went right down to the wire. You would say, in Limerick's case, there's definitely conflicting analysis in the way both teams started. If Wexford hadn't started well, it would be a bit more consistent, but it's hard to know. The Kilkenny, we talked last Thursday, Brian, about how do you deal with the Limerick half-forward line. And I think we come down to it that you need to follow them, or it's hard to know. But when you actually,
Michael Carton did.
But when you actually look at it now, the answer is there yesterday from Kilkenny, and the other team that they lost to was Clare, who left their half back line in position. So from my understanding of this now is you let them on, hold your position. So now they don't have that ball to Galan, right? Then your half forward line marks their half forward line. But crucially, your full forward line moves out in their half back line. So you're leaving their full back line free, which is not a threat to you because Limerick will never drive that down the field because that's not their game. So now you've matched up all over. You've your half back line in position and the only lads free is their full back line and Limerick don't want to drive it. So now Limerick are in an awful situation. Do you know what I mean? That seems to be the answer. Everyone move back.
And that's what I said last week, Wooly, was that Kilkenny in the Cork game went back to being Kilkenny and enforced their will and the way they hurl on Cork, and their half back line stayed more or less in possession. Their midfielders drop back, their half forwards drop back. Whereas in the Leinster final, they pandered to Wexford's tactics and they followed them all around the field and they left huge gaps open, whereas they said no more of this, we're actually going to stick to what we're good at, and like that's what they've done in the last couple of games. And
because Mullen was corner forward, but he was out, he was in that hunting pack. Fenley wasn't, but the other corner forward, who was that? Richie Hogan was out. So I think they only played with Fenley up front, did they at times?
So to go back to the game of chess that we talked about last week as well, like anyone that was there, Kyle Hayes picked up TJ Reid for huge parts of that game as well. So they were trying to leave Declan Hannon obviously free in that centre back role and the sweeping position or whatever way we want to describe it. But that was completely nullifying Kyle Hayes. He's such a dynamic player. I know he got up the field and he can get a score or two, but he can really hurt teams when he's that. Like their half forward line, two of them taken off. Their half forward line is really the go-to. Tom Morrissey
got a point. Hegarty played. It was Paddy Deegan on him. Paddy Deegan was brilliant.
Excellent.
He was brilliant.
Excellent.
He's a warrior type player as well, isn't he?
He's Cody's type of player, isn't he?
Yeah. And I think going back, like the first time, and it's been noted already, like it's been the first time that you heard Cody talking about tactics after a game. Kilkenny got the tactical battle bang on, but it demands a huge work rate from your half forward line, and your full forward line, and that's what it boiled down to at the end of the day. They kept their shape at the back, and Pádraig Walsh mopped up a hell of a lot of ball back there and played the role really well.
They showed how to play Limerick. That's basically it now. That the Limerick, it's not a secret anymore. You're just basically you're holding your position, and your forwards are leaving their full back line free, and everyone's pairing up then as much as possible. I mean,
that's your basic tactic, but a hell of a lot of work needed and a hell of a lot of good players to carry it out at the same time.
You see, this is the thing, but when that middle third's so congested, which it was, it's easier to hunt in packs then because there's a lot of you around that man and you just descend on him, you know what I mean?
Flood an area basically.
You can flood an area much easier. Obviously if it's not as crowded, it's very risky leaving your man in that situation, to double up.
Clare against Limerick this year, the wing backs actually stayed in their spots as well, but the problem was that the wing forward and the full forward line wasn't coming out.
Right.
So like Rod Hegarty was allowed up and Tom Morrissey, the far side, were allowed up, but the forwards just unfortunately on that day weren't working hard enough to track them. So then everyone was saying after the game, actually, like, why didn't Davy Fitz follow Rod Hegarty? Why didn't whoever's on the far side follow their man as well? So it comes down to work rate in your forwards. Simple.
No, it does. And in your full forward line, which I think
forwards have to do everything.
Don Logue keeps talking about Mick Dempsey being the big influence on this, and Mick Dempsey managed me for Laois in '98. He gave me my debut, and there was none of that back then. This whole thing started in Gaelic football 2003, Tyrone Kerry All-Ireland semi-final, where Tyrone just hunted them down. It was like one of the most iconic clips.
That's right.
Darragh Canada was hunted down, Darragh O'Shea, and they eventually turned it over. But Jesus, lads, you know the clip I'm talking about. But Brian Cody would have watched that, lads. It's not Mick Dempsey. Brian Cody would have watched that and gone, oh my God. I'm telling you. And it's interesting that I've done live shows with the Tyrone lads, and Brian Cody has been a guest speaker up at their training on a couple of occasions. And he's told Tyrone that because I remember Joe McMahon telling me for Brian Cody to tell them that they were an inspiration to him. This isn't Mick Dempsey, lads. This is that's up Brian Cody's alley. Now it could be Mick Dempsey as well. It's not like Mick Dempsey saying I don't want to do that, but I think Donald Logue's wrong saying that's totally Mick Dempsey instead of giving Brian Cody credit for that.
I see what you're saying, but obviously Mick Dempsey's the man who's carried it through, and Brian Cody trusts Mick Dempsey so much. And in fairness to Mick Dempsey, he's always been ahead of the curve in terms of physical fitness. There's one thing that they probably don't get enough credit for, particularly maybe 10 years ago when they had that phenomenal team. The physical preparation of that Kilkenny team, they are phenomenal. They are without doubt one of the fittest teams that are out there every single year, and that's what allows them to have this work rate and this intensity. And look, I know some of the Kilkenny players well, and I thought with a couple of them, you just hearing, like, it wouldn't have been rubbish talk. You just know the numbers they're hitting in the fitness tests and the body shape and the percentage body fats. They are so ahead of that curve, and they're always that one step ahead, in fairness to Mick Dempsey. So they're so innovative from that perspective. They give out this, and people are very fooled by it. This veil of that. Should we just hurl? They're far from that.
I had a question. Wally Walsh's fitness there before the Cork game. Do you remember saying about would he be able to play that role? Like straight away, the very first ball. Where was he?
Yeah,
he was.
That's right.
Wing back. Jimmy got the flick and was over the line. It just set the tone. Like
he did a brilliant first half. Walter. He went out of it a bit, but that's to be expected. He has been injured.
And John Donnelly on the other side as well. Like the amount of hard work he got through. And
he
the
was
dirty
unreal
ball.
in the first
brilliant.
time. Yeah.
He was brilliant. And the new players really stepped up. Like they're fantastic. Mullen's probably going to get Young Hurler of the Year now at this stage. Like
he's guaranteed.
He was brilliant.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. Let's not get into him yet because he's one of my big performers of the weekend. But just on the puck outs, it was interesting to see Kilkenny give up a puck out to Limerick on a few occasions. They went along with most of their puck outs, Kilkenny, but TJ was a target, Walter was a target, and like everything you say before,
hammer the hammer.
I've
said it repeatedly. Like, and you go back to the league final, William. I remember distinctly doing the analysis on this, where Waterford couldn't do anything. They couldn't hit it short, they couldn't hit it long, and I said that Limerick half back line, they're unbelievable in the air, but the only way you'll get to break them down is go straight at them. You have to meet that physical battle head on. Anything else playing around it is all you're doing. You're playing around. You won't break it down for 70-75 minutes. I don't care what anyone says. You have to meet it head on, and that's exactly what Kilkenny did. And that's why they repeatedly are in All-Irelands or winning All-Irelands. They have no problem. They'll take it on, and I keep saying it, they'll hammer the hammer.
Yeah.
I think hindsight is great, but if Nicky Craig looks back over the game again, especially in the first half, he could have gone short an awful lot more. Instead there was a classic. It was shown in the Sunday game last night where Tom Morrissey made
that was good analysis.
That was good analysis too. And he definitely could have used Sean Finn. He could have used Mikey Casey Small a little bit more as well. Yeah,
and I thought the analysis on Kyle Hayes dropping back on TJ was good too. I didn't spot that during the game, and I didn't think the co-com spotted it either, because Kyle Hayes drops back a good bit anyways.
Yeah.
So you would think he's just back there. You would, unless somebody tells you he's actually gone back to mark.
Yeah.
You're not really going to know as a fan watching it.
No, you could see Declan Hannon. There was something seriously wrong with him, and I think it was early enough in the game. He kind of fell out over. I think it was Graham Mulcahy at the time, and I can remember seeing him getting up, and the hurl was just dragging along the ground. This is early enough into the game.
Rib actually.
Was it? Yeah.
That's what I read now. Being honest.
Yeah,
but Declan's been unfortunate with injuries too. He's been carrying a lot of injuries. So, but he's obviously a great hurler. Losing him, he's a big loss. Dan Morrissey didn't have great influence on the game either. Wing back, he was
did very well now.
He did. That's the point I was getting. I think he actually hit a lot of ball. He did well in fairness to him.
Yeah, and it's
converted wing back.
Converted forward. Yeah, because he's fast. Just to finish up on this, lads. Obviously, Seamus Flanagan didn't get brought on at all, so his form seems to have gone. And we're all thinking of his form last year when that's clearly not his form. But for me, Limerick's forward kind of dynamic changes with him not there, because instead of Gallan being the one that waits on the edge of the square, now Gallan's coming out racing for ball, and that's not really where you want him. And you know what I mean? It used to be Mulcahy and Flanagan out in front of Gallan, and Gallan wouldn't move pretty much until these lads get on the ball, and he was getting better ball. I don't know. I just think now yesterday it was Casey and Gallan inside, and Mulcahy seemed to go out as a third midfielder, and I don't know, it's just maybe they should be evolving it a little bit, but I do think Flanagan on that form last year is a big loss to them.
He just didn't have it this year.
No,
for whatever reason. Like last year he was fantastic, but I've seen him in a couple of times in league games as well. He just wasn't at the same pitch as he was. Like,
and he did suffer a hamstring injury then as well earlier in the year, so it can be hard to come back from. And look, I spoke about this, and I don't want to take from the young man. He was a sub for Limerick under 21 when they won All-Ireland. So, he wasn't a star minor, he wasn't a star under 21. He reached unbelievable levels last year. And you're 100% right, Rolly. He offered something so different to Limerick last year. And that type of player is what they're missing, particularly in that full forward line.
Because Casey can't do that job.
No, he can't do it. He offers something different.
He's almost the opposite of Seamus Flanagan, isn't
the
it?
match in the Munster final.
Yeah. So look, it's not that we're not saying Casey doesn't deserve his place. Obviously, it's just that something different is basically what we're missing. But look, obviously there's a reason for it. Form might be off. Casey's form was obviously unbelievable.
It was a surprise to see David Reedy on instead of him. Put it that way.
Right.
I definitely thought we might see him. Maybe he was carrying an injury. I don't know.
See, this is it. You don't know what's going on.
You don't know what's going on. But
you trust John Kiley knows why he's at, and that's for sure.
It was a surprise not to see him coming on right.
Yeah, I think it was. And I do think, say if there's two men covering Casey and Gallan, like Casey's not going to make that hard run. He's more of a player that pops up into little spaces and stuff. Flanagan would have made a run that would have dragged one of those Kilkenny lads somewhere else, you know, and left Galan. But Galan had to make those runs then. Do you know that kind of
Look,
way?
Again, that's all hypothetical because that's based on last year's form. You know, as I said, we just don't know what's going on.
But when Limerick were struggling in the first half, you know, Galan and Graham Mulcahy were the two players that really, you know, stepped up for them as well.
Definitely, they did 15 wides to Kilkenny's 8 as well. A little bit like the Leinster final, more efficient.
Galan was guilty of a couple of bad
He
ones.
was. He's a weird one, Galan, in that he's one of the top forwards in the country. But Patrick Horgan isn't missing some of the ones Galan misses. Like, you know, that kind of way.
Yeah.
He still had a great year. Jesus,
neither midfielder scored. None of their half-back line scored from play because usually Declan Hanna might get up and get a point or two. You know, he's had great battles even with Joe Canning in Ireland a couple of years ago.
Keane Lynch wasn't in it.
Yeah, he wasn't in it. So none of their half-back line scored. None of their midfielders scored. Only one half-forward scored. You know, and then Peter Casey only got a point, Graham Mulcahy got 2, Aaron Galan got 3 from play. So you can see they were running into trouble, you know, that they weren't getting those scores. And then, you know, any of the subs come on didn't have a huge impact in terms of the scoring stakes either. So, you know, Kilkenny from that perspective deserve massive credit. They really hounded them out. They shut down, you know, their scoring avenues very much so. And, you know, just Limerick, Jackie Turrell ended up, his own county saved him in the end. Jackie going with the big thing that Limerick wouldn't come back and retain All-Ireland again. Look, for a while that Limerick were going to walk home to this All-Ireland.
No, in fairness, that's too easy on Jackie. Jackie said they're not even a top 3 to 4 team, did he? Like, I mean, never mind. Don't go too easy on Jackie.
I'm not going that easy. No, I was making the point that his own county saved him.
Yeah, no, he saved him, but still didn't save him from him. Oh, it was the day he said they weren't a top 3, Limerick destroyed them in Nolan Park, wasn't it? Right. Yeah. Listen, we'll come back with Paddy Power performance of the weekend. Paddy Power performance the weekend. Loads of people in the running for this. I'm going to start with Adrian Mullen. 4 points from play, All-Ireland semi-final. His point in the 59th minute, lads, you'll have to describe this to me. I don't know how he did this. This was just it was complete innovation. It was a complete innovation. Like, I mean, it was unorthodox.
The faint one, is that the one TJ threw it out to him and he, you know, it looked like he was going to be blocked down, kind of looked a little bit over his shoulder and then just flicked it over with the wrist, pure wrists, like
pure wrists. Yeah,
you know, and it doesn't matter what way it gets over the bar or under the bar, just get it in there.
His first point as well, the one that came after that intense pressure.
Well, his third point, I think it was, the catch and the shimmy and fired it over the bar. Like, at that stage in an All-Ireland semi-final, 19 years of age, this guy is going to be awesome. He already is awesome. Like, you know, he's All-Ireland Club Player of the Year. He's 19. He got 6 points in the All-Ireland final. Like, oh, lads,
he has everything.
He has it all.
He's been known for the, you know, when you're involved, I suppose, in schools hurling, you've heard of him and you've seen him in action, you know, the last couple of years. I didn't think he'd make the step up as quick.
JJ didn't either. No, actually.
Now, in the club final, you could see that he had something to offer, but we know he's scoring. Like, we've been watching him for the last maybe 3 or 4 years since under 16 level. Like, you know, his scoring is obviously phenomenal, but it's his work rate. And I think he's rubbing off TJ, you know, and Finlay and the work rate from his club mates, and they're obviously, you know, they're great role models for him. But he's some player. Yeah,
it's the way he carries himself, lads. There's no shrinking violet there. This lad sticks his chest out and runs around.
Player.
Very
he's a confident young fella. Like,
and you never even thought that one under Cusack stand, his first point. You never thought he was going to miss that.
Like,
and that came, because that came after that intense pressure. And if that didn't go over, it's like, oh, what do we do all that work? You know what I mean? That work for. So there's a bit of pressure on him sticking that over.
And it doesn't faze him at all. No. Like, to be that age again, you know what I mean? We were all there. We were all that cocky when we were not cocky, but confident. You know,
you were cocky,
confident when you were that age, but you need to be when you were forward in particular. But no, I take your point, Bugs. What he does have for such a young man, his work rate, his physicality for such a young man, because it's not like he's, you know, muscle bound or anything, but he's just able to get his body in there and win hard ball, whether it's in the air, on the ground, in the rucks. He's really, really impressive. And as he said, look, he's great role models in these 2 club men in particular. But Cody obviously has enforced them too. You know, he took him off in the games early this year. But credit to the young man.
Not taking him off now.
No, but he's responded. He's responded so well. You know, Cody probably set the tone with him early. He's done that with both TJ and Richie Hogan. They were the leading underage players breaking through when Cody had the great teams too. They had to wait their time or bide their time and learn what's expected of a Kilkenny hurler. But by God, in fairness to Adrian Mullen, he's grasped it big time, and look, he is phenomenal.
He definitely has. Ronan Maher's the other one, and I did mention Conor MacDonald scored 2-2 off him. So you can play brilliantly. Now, the 2-2, is it his fault? You know,
Look at the first
he won
goal,
so
Willie.
many inspirational balls to go that this. I think Sky gave him man of the match, and he was the one in my head for man of the match when the final whistle
Look
went.
at the 2 goals. He couldn't have done anything about the 2 goals. They were in over his head.
Yeah.
You know, he kind of had to go, especially the second one. He had to go.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just a tap in for. Like, you can't fault him for the 2 goals, but his performance and that catch alone, and your man, who was it?
McGovern, I'm fairly sure.
Was it? Yeah. He was great. He was brilliant.
He was brilliant. The point he got then as well, the second one where he, big catch, drove straight through the centre off the hurl without like missing a step. You know what I mean? It was like he had it in his hand. Just
He's
the way
very good at that, isn't he?
Brilliant, yeah. But
Great
the first
striker.
goal, I know. Look, obviously,
Do you think he went
not
too
a defender.
quick?
I thought he stepped forward too quick. He didn't mind his man. Do you know, like usually a full back or corner back will be he'll be touch tight to your man and won't give you that space. Whereas he's probably more used to playing that half back line. He went towards the ball and he left that space. Conor McDonald pointed up, get it across to me. Sean Murphy knew what he's at because obviously Conor McDonald is really good in the air anyway. Yeah. But he allowed Conor McDonald to be able to catch the ball uncontested as opposed to having to get up and catch it by not being touch tight. I just thought that was just a little bit mentality. Look, you obviously know more about that than I do.
I find if it's a little bit like Gaelic football, and you've been bearing down on goals, right? And there's a lad inside you, and there's a lad covering him. You're hoping he takes that step ahead towards you to make your decision easier. It's when he backs off, and now you're getting closer to goal because in your head you wanted a pass. So he's backed off. Now I'm thinking goal pass, and I'm all over the place. And then he makes a sudden movement towards you. You know what I mean? I would always coach a defender in that situation. Back off. Now hurling, obviously you can score from further out, so it's different. But in Gaelic football, I'd be like, back off, right until you think he's inside the 14. And don't make. It's just so easy if the defender runs towards you. It's over his head. Your job's done. You've set up the goal.
We kind of said the 21 in hurling, really, isn't it? Back off.
Maybe that's it, and that's what
there's a time when you have to go as well.
No, of course. But you don't go too early. I think that's the point.
That's the point.
Yeah, look, it's slightly different because the ball was already inside the 14 then. But I just thought Ronan Maher, it wasn't the instinct of a full backline player. He went towards the ball as opposed to being touch tight to his man. Yeah,
no, exactly. That's the point. And actually from that inspirational catch where he knocked McGovern over, that was a brilliant point. There's more should have been made out of that. That was iconic. This was like as good as you'll ever see to catch in a crowd of players. Your momentum, drive another man out of your way. Bloody hell, we've seen The Rock do that to Kilkenny lads, and he'd get a free and he'd run at the other lad. And then for a point to come off this, that's
a great
huge
score.
Michael Breen, brilliant score. That was a huge moment.
That's what we should be highlighting. We should be highlighting moments like that.
Ronan Maher was brilliant as well in around the square. There was a couple of balls in there, and he just he rose them, drove out with them. He was exceptional, and I agree with you, Willie. For me, my initial reaction after the game was he was man of the match, and it's amazing. Like Noel McGrath. Look, again, we could argue.
I'll argue for Noel McGrath.
In fairness, Sunday game gave it to Noel McGrath. Sky gave it to Ronan Maher. So I think it's actually nice that two different players actually got it because I think it's a testament to how good both players were.
I completely agree. And like to be honest with you, when you think about Wexford giving high ball into Ronan Maher, Brendan Maher and Paddy Maher, Jesus lads,
nuts to the monkeys as early as
like that's madness. TJ Reid lads, again, there's nothing more you can say about TJ Reid. The catch laid on was the most eye-catching, and he could have hit a Hail Mary point, but he decided to lob it in, and I think it was James Maher scored the point from it. You know what I mean? Just pure, and then just catching balls from puck outs, getting in hooks, blocks. The man's a machine. He's all over the field. He lives like he's obviously his day job is working out. And I think genuinely that shows with him, lads. He's everywhere on the field.
He's a businessman as well, but
well, that's his business.
What can you say about him? He's a legend. Right, he is a legend, and he's going to be a legend all his life. He's a phenomenal player. There's nothing I can say here that hasn't already been said about him. He's up there with the best Kilkenny hurlers of all time, in my opinion. He's an absolute legend.
Is it fair to say that TJ Reid is clearly a legend and everybody says it, that Seamie Callanan doesn't get the same kind of adulation as TJ does? Even you could arguably say what Seamie does is as impressive, if not more impressive.
Yeah, like if you want to go on statistics,
he's just gone past Christy Ring and DJ Carey for goals.
And TJ hasn't scored in 3 out of his last 4 games. Do you know, but he's been unbelievable. Don't get me wrong, and I've eulogised about him on this show as well.
You can't directly compare them as players, but you can directly compare the adulation they get, and there's no comparison.
I think Hurler of the Year is down between the two of them. It's whoever wins the All-Ireland will probably get the Hurler of the Year, TJ Reid or Seamie Callanan. Like Seamie Callanan, 7 goals in 7 games. Like we were raving about it earlier in the Munster Championship, and look, look, he's a phenomenal player. Will he keep it going? Like,
he's a phenomenal player. But you have to look at what TJ's doing for the club as well. He's sustaining it for
that depends on the
year.
Success that you have with the players that you have around you as well.
He's driving the club also.
Shamie Callan got 9 points in playing All-Ireland final, lads. Like, that's
off JJ.
Seriously,
like no. He got 5 off JJ though another year.
And
I remember slagging JJ about it. It was he's a great player. Look, you can't JJ got the better of him in the replay, but Shamie cleaned JJ in the first day that time.
But Shamie's been so unlucky, that he didn't get Hurler of the Year. Himself. He was up there for debate. I remember the tip vote was split between Paulie Maher and Shamie, and I think was it Ozzie Gleeson got it that year. I think So
but come here,
it was amazing.
Listen to me on that point. If TJ had scored the goal Shamie scored at the weekend, there would have been more made out about what a brilliant goal this is than Shamie. And sometimes for some reason Shamie doesn't get that, and I just don't know why that is.
Scoring them too often.
Maybe it is. But genuinely, if TJ had scored that goal on the run, away from the goal, on a hopping ball, would there be more made out of it?
I don't know. I suppose that's up for debate, really.
I know it's hypothetical. I think there would.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. Like, Shamie's not seen as a superstar of the game. We probably have a couple of them: Joe Canning, TJ, Pat Horgan's obviously unbelievable. He's still probably not even in that echelons at the moment.
Off it now.
But was in it. Tony Kelly.
We're talking about people have him up real and deservedly so on these massive pedestals, and Shamie has this record like just as good as any of them. In fact, like obviously goal scoring, he's up there. So I take your point, Willie. I certainly do.
Yeah, because he's just on a forward line with match winners all over it. That he's diluted a little bit into it. I'm not too sure that he's. I don't know, but maybe I'm overstating that. What about Hugh Lawler, lads? He was not guaranteed his place. Conor Delaney had that until he got sent off. He's raw, Hugh Lawler. He's rangy. He's like an octopus. He's all arms and legs. But he's a wholehearted player. He did great for a late goal chance. I think it was after Reedy's one. He cleared that off the line. But he did very well on Gallant. Now it's borderline. He's all over him. But Gallant's a big lump of a fellow. I was listening. Someone saying he's put on 5 kgs this year, and he physically he's a much more impressive fella than Hugh Lawler, who's still a bit long and rangy. I am a big fan of Hugh Lawler. I just am. I think he's a great bit of stuff.
Yeah, he slotted into that role really, really well, and I was really, really impressed in there yesterday. Willie, I thought he was fantastic. But he's a good college player as well. It's not like he's just appeared out of no place as well.
Right.
So he's
a Loughlin Gales county final winner too, isn't he? Like he used to play wing back for them, I believe.
Yeah. I'm not sure about that now, being honest with you. But he was terrific, and he's kind of slotted in there seamlessly,
Yeah. Very good. He still concedes a bit from play. Now, I know. Look, you're always going to, but in the Leinster final, something similar in the semi-final.
But he's given a tough job. He's been given He's been given
God, he's in for some 70 minutes in the All-Ireland. If he can keep Shamie to 2 or 3 points in the All-Ireland final, that'll be one hell of a 70 minutes.
Yeah. See, Shamie will be a different proposition now, because Shamie wants Conor McDonald and Gallant will stand wrestling with him. Shamie will be moving. You know what I mean? He's going to be much harder for him to mark. But anyways, I think Graham McCarthy deserves a mention. In the first half, he kept Limerick in it when they were under pressure. I think there was that brilliant score he got where he hooked Delaney twice, which is a bit madness. Delaney going for these big mad clearances, and he was hooked twice, and Mulcahy picked his pocket and scored a point, and that was a momentum changer.
Yeah. Look, Graham Mulcahy's brilliant, and for me, he was arguably Hurler of the Year last year. I know Keane Lynch got it, and it was widely touted for it, but I thought Graham Mulcahy was unbelievable. I was definitely in the corner forward union last year for that one, but I just thought he's scoring, and he's big scores for Limerick when they needed him, and he made a Hames of the ball in the All-Ireland last year, and then went back and scored what turned out to be the winning point. Just thought he was phenomenal for them. So he's a big game player. Graham is for Limerick. He's one of there's only a couple of players that have been there over the last number of years consistently for Limerick, and I just think he's top class. And he's not a big man or anything like that, but he has it all. He turned Paddy Maher upside down in the Munster final as well. He's not afraid to mix it, so I think he's class.
Definitely, and he's held his position when all these good young lads, because often lads that have been there a while kind of suffer when these young lads come in, and he hasn't.
Yeah, his work rate as well is just absolutely brilliant, and he's had a great year. He's had a brilliant year. He's very, very proud of himself now.
Completely agree, and I'm not in the forwards union, but I take your point. I think he was the player of the year last year ahead of Lynch, if you look at all the games. Other notable mentions are Noel McGrath. We'll have to get him in a second. Lee Chin, Paddy Deegan, Walter and Podrick Walsh. I would refuse to call them Welsh. It's spelt with an A, so it's Walsh. It's Walsh for me. Anybody else you want to give him?
Dermot O'Keefe
in the first half.
Yeah, first half. He was phenomenal in the first half. Oh my God, he's movement.
I would hold it against him, the fact that he just took those points when there were goals on. You know, and I've done this before myself. You want to get off the mark. I think it's a selfish thing in a way, because it's nice to have a point on the board, but the brave thing there to do is to work that goal and might not come off. You know, Richie Hogan didn't care of getting his second point that time. He wanted to work. He wanted to work a goal. Maybe that's a confidence of been there, done that. I know what I am. I don't have to prove anything. You know, but you have to go for a goal in our semi-final when it's kind of even half on. Well, all the good teams do that.
Yeah. Again, that comes back to experience, isn't it, as well? And taking the percentages, I suppose he looked at it. It was definitely a 70-30% chance of a point, whereas 30% chance of a goal. So he went with the percentages and took his point and didn't try to run into trouble and allow Tipperary opportunities to maybe overturn it. So they were like every single point was going to count. They were hoping that they would keep the scoring rate of Tipperary much more down. They were hoping obviously to keep it closer to 20 points. Again, Tipperary broke the 30 point mark. That's 6 games out of 7 after doing it.
128.
Some shooting.
Some shooting. Noel McGrath then, lads, he got 4 from play. He got the RTE man of the match, and you couldn't argue with that either. He was excellent. Played wing forward. Is that a surprise?
Started centre forward.
Started centre forward, did he?
Forward on Paddy Foley.
Right, and Bubbles played out in the wing.
Yeah, and they mixed it up by doing that.
He's out in the centre in the second half though.
Yeah, he went out midfield in the second half. Yeah, right. So he started centre forward, got a couple of points there, but actually I think he got everything from midfield, being honest, because he was moving everywhere, to be fair to him. But we mentioned Bubbles didn't get much play in the wing. He ended up going corner. But Noel McGrath, sorry to go back to Noel, obviously his performance, every single one of his points were there were points for the ages, and there were really, really important scores in Tipperary. The one where he threw the little bit of a shimmy, pretended he was going left and back right, and just split the post. He could be an excuse there for mishitting the ball or hitting it wide, but he when they needed him, he really stood up as well.
Yeah, to me, like, it was the performance of the weekend, without a shadow of a doubt. I thought he was absolutely unbelievable, and I suppose everything about the guy is just unbelievable, as well as being a phenomenal hurler. He's a sound man, and like what I suppose the way he stood up in particular, when his brother was sent off, I just thought he grabbed himself from, as I said earlier on, himself and Ronan just grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck, and his points, but not only his points, I thought his work rate, and Noel wouldn't be the paciest in the world, so he uses what he has to the best of his ability, and he's the best striker in the game out there at the moment. Like he was awesome yesterday.
Yeah, he definitely.
I was delighted he got man of the match now, being honest with you.
And I love his attitude as well. Now, he doesn't give the best interviews in the world, but he's consistent in what he says. He says, "Oh,
there's no bullshit with him.
A lot of pressure
out
there
any
today."
bullshit.
No, sure. That's what we're training for. Days like this, and he was looking around at the crowd, going, "This is what it's all about."
He's
like,
as
how would
genuine
you?
as you can get.
Yeah, they definitely are. I don't know who to give it to now, because you make a good case for Noel McGrath. Had a Ronan Maher was going to get it. Will we give like joint captains? We give
never sent like that in the parade.
That was weird, wasn't it?
That was weird. No, I think that's going a little bit too far now.
And has that never happened before? Because I remember seeing it going. Jesus,
we had joint captains in Clare, but always one of them took the lead. Like
right,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Which is take turns. Would it be?
Skidgy and Keen Dillon and Tony were joint captains in 2016, but they every second game
did march out. This is just for Munster Championship games. Like, would you do parades? You do parades for them?
Well, that's a big criticism I have of Leinster, that they don't. I've said this. I'm on record and saying this a long time. Like, we hear about the joy of the Munster Championship. I know we're going off point here. Munster Championship always have parades and they build a big occasion.
Yeah.
Leinster Championship never have them.
Funny enough,
we had a league final that year as well. Like, we had 2 games against Waterford. I think as far as I know, I think there was 2 parades.
There would have been for a league final. But that's interesting. You say that the Ulster Football Championship is the one that has them as well, and that's one of the more glamorous football ones that they make a big deal out of. Maybe there is something in that. But so that's it. Your boys took turns because it looked weird.
They were never out in front together anyway.
But like, it's a Davy thing, obviously, because it was Davy had your joint captains as well.
Yeah,
right. So what's the theory behind joint captains then? He might have explained that when he
like a defensive kind of captain. He usually picks the defender and a forward.
Right. Okay. And there's a bit of logic to that.
Yeah,
there is.
Right? Yeah, I get that, but
except for the parade, maybe they couldn't agree on it. Just do it together. Don't be annoying.
Biggest day in their lives. Like, who's going to be out in front?
What about the All Ireland though?
Okay.
Well, today.
Yeah. Well, we're going to sit on the fence here, and we're going to go with Noel McGrath and Ronan Maher. And if Ronan Maher or Noel McGrath has won this, I can't remember, one of them might have, well then you're out. Whoever's won it before. At the moment we're going with joint. And you could even go with another joint of Adrian Mullen,
That's a
TJ
fact,
Reid
yeah.
together as well.
Throw him
So
in
like,
there.
I mean, it's actually difficult to pick.
Come on, Paddy, throw a few jocks there to the boys.
2 doubles, that's 4 in one show, lad. You're trying to break Paddy Power here.
He got his odds right this weekend as usual.
All right, listen, that's always time for great stuff, lads. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll do a show for you on Wednesday, and we might go in a little bit deeper into some of that stuff on the Sunday game, and we'll have 2 football shows we'll have a football show on Wednesday as well, because we're in Westport this Thursday night for a preview of Mayo and Donegal. So we'll talk to you on Wednesday. Good luck.